Hello and welcome to the Indiana Lawyer Podcast, your source for news and Hoosier law brought to you by Taft. I'm Alexa Shrake, Indiana Lawyer reporter and your host this week. I'm here with Indiana University Maurer School of Law Dean Christiana Ochoa. The law school has some exciting news about a new program for students. So to start, Dean Ochoa, tell me a little bit about how the new master's program came to fruition.
Yeah, well, first, Alexa, let me just thank you for having me today. It's really nice to get a chance to talk with you about the Master's in Legal Studies program that we're really excited to be on the cusp of launching. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about it. It's a wonderful program for the Maurer School of Law. So to answer that question, when I came so I became the dean of the Maurer School of Law in the summer of 2022. And it was my observation coming into this position that it had been a little while since the law school had really updated the certificate and degree programs available to students, to potential students out there in the world. And as a result, we were a little bit out of step with some of our peer schools. So, for example, 66 schools have created Masters of Legal Studies or their equivalent over the course of the last 10 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. And we don't have that program yet. And so in order to really ensure that the law school is keeping the profile it needs and serving the constituencies that it has traditionally served, we had to continue to innovate to provide those really important programs for new students and professionals that are interested in making sure that they are staying at the very front lines of being ready and equipped and capacitated for the challenging jobs that they're seeking.
So how will this program, also benefit undergraduate students at IU?
Yeah, so exactly. This program is mostly, at least initially, really targeted toward the undergraduate population on the IU Bloomington campus. So, for example, the McKinney School of Law has a master's in jurisprudence program that is primarily targeted at professionals that are needing additional credentials once they've been out there in the world already, engaged in their jobs. They admit about 30 students a year. We are really focused on IU undergraduates, the IU undergraduate population. What we observe is that there are lots of undergraduates who know that within their fields of study, within their chosen fields for their professions, that legal expertise is going to be important. They may not want to be lawyers, so investing 3 years of their time to become a JD is not what they want for their careers. But for example, let's imagine that you are really interested in media administration. It would be very, very useful to you to have a bit of legal knowledge in a range of areas. So it would be, for example, really important to have knowledge of the constitutional system and, for example, expressive rights, First Amendment rights. It might be also really important to have a good sense of what are the moments when contracts really matter in the media landscape. When does intellectual property really matter in the media landscape? That's just one example. You could imagine similar utility for someone to have legal expertise within a specialized area without having a JD and being licensed to practice law. So, for example, if you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner, you could imagine having a range of moments during the life of your business or even in a given week when you might be thinking, do I need a lawyer for this? And without some degree of legal expertise, you don't know those moments when you can navigate, you can do fine, you can get through that moment with some basic legal expertise, and those moments when, yes, in fact, you really need a lawyer. Those are just a couple of examples, but you could imagine the same kinds of examples for people who are going into legal compliance and risk management, people who are going into human relations and employment relations, people who are going to criminal justice or law enforcement, educational administrators, people who are working in nonprofit organizations and thinking about policy analysis and advocacy. There are a range of areas where undergraduates would leave with a bachelor's degree, but with just one more year of staying on this campus and getting this additional credential, they will be really valuable to potential employers, when they're out there in the world because of their ability to identify legal issues and when there is actually a need for a lawyer to get involved. The other place where it's really useful, so this is a 30 credit degree. The idea is that you should be able to finish it in one calendar year. And the real benefit, one of the things that we're working on avidly right now, is creating what are called accelerated master's programs with other schools on campus. So we already have an accelerated master's program approved with the College of Arts and Sciences, which is huge, obviously, the huge portion of the undergraduate population. We've also got an accelerated master's program approved at the media school, and we're in the process of negotiating accelerated master's programs with other schools on campus as well. And what that allows a student to do is double count 10 credits from the work that they're doing in the master's degree, the master's in legal studies, count 10 credits of that work toward their undergraduate degree. And for those double counted credits, they can first of all, it's undergraduate tuition that will apply rather than graduate level tuition that will apply. And for students who are here on scholarships, they can apply their scholarships that are for that undergraduate time during the time that they're getting those credits as master's students with the Maurer School of Law. So there's a lot of really exciting possibilities here for undergraduates.
What is the feedback you received from faculty and students on this?
Yeah. So far, it's just been really, really great. Exactly what we were anticipating. So as I mentioned, this is not a brand new creation of our own, right? There are lots of schools that have created these kinds of programs already, and they have been very popular at the schools that have created them. So we anticipated that there would be student demand, and there is. We've got a really nice group of both pre-law students who are thinking about law school but not really sure, and then also lots of students who really had not been thinking about law at all because the 3 years of a JD degree just that was not what they were interested in, right? They're interested in being journalists, or they're interested in being educational administrators, or they're interested in being policymakers. And so they want to just go straight into their field. So the JD just was not, that's not the path that they're looking for professionally, but they do want some legal expertise, and they see the way that their undergraduate BA or BS combines nicely with a professional capacitation through the MLS to really launch them. And so there's been a lot of excitement among students, which we're thrilled about. And for the faculty, so both our own faculty, I think, is really, really excited to have a new degree program for the first time in many years. We have had the JD degree is 180 years old. We've been offering that is our core degree, and we're super proud of that degree, obviously. But in addition to that, we've had a master's in legal studies. A master's in law, the LLM, which is targeted primarily at students from other countries who come here for a year, sometimes 2 years, to get their LLM degree. We've had that degree in place for 100 years. So the idea that now we can really target a degree to students who have already committed a chunk of time here in Bloomington, know this campus well, and are interested have had a sort of a twinkle in their eye about the law school, has our faculty really excited, and I'm thrilled for that. I'm excited to have these students in the door next year.
Is there like additional classes being added on to this than what you already have?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So the way the program is designed, there are 4 entry-level core classes that students in the program must take. If you have a significant pre-law set of credits, we may be able to waive some of those, but predominantly the core classes that every student in the master's in legal studies will take is a 1-credit online introduction to legal studies. It's really just making sure that everybody is kind of leveled up on just the basics, almost like civic education with respect to what the legal system is in the United States. Then the rest of the degree is in person. So at least initially, right now, we've proposed the degree as an in-person degree, and that's really what we're excited about right now. So then there will be 3 in-person, what we're calling fundamentals courses. There'll be an introduction to law course that is the fundamentals of the U.S. legal system that will really be an overview of the entire legal system. Then there will be a fundamentals course focused on private law, so contracts, the relationship between parties through a contract. And then on the public law side, we'll have a fundamentals course on American constitutional law, so that by the time that students get through those foundational courses. They've got a really good overview, with the roles the law plays in society, an overview of the system of law within the United States, and then a particular, more deeper dive into both the contracts, private law side of the legal system and the constitutional law, public law side of the U.S. legal system. And then from there, what's amazing about this program, I think, I wish that I could have done it when I was an undergraduate, is that from there, you get to choose any course that we offer here at the law school. So take the foundational classes, and then you get to be in the same courses with JD students, with our LLM students who are judges and lawyers from all over the world, in courses taught by our faculty. And then at the end, you also get to take a capstone course of your choosing to make sure that the Master's in Legal Studies is really giving you that specialized expertise that you were looking for when you decided to engage in this degree program. It's a really exciting curriculum. I think for the right students, and they're gonna know who they are. They are really going to benefit from being here for a year's time in this program.
Well, that sounds really fun. When can students start applying for the program?
Yeah, we're hoping to have our application up as soon as possible. So we're in the very final stages of getting all of our approvals in place, and as soon as those are in place, the program will start accepting applications. So very soon, during the spring semester.
Is there an expected class size for the program? How many you're expecting to accept in?
Yeah. So initially, we expect the program to be, relatively small. It's just getting off the ground. Like every small business effort, you start small and you grow from there. So we're hoping to have a cohort of, if we have 10 students next year, I will be absolutely thrilled. We sort of expect maybe a little bit less than that in the first year. But the program, I anticipate, just given what has happened with these programs at other law schools, we anticipate this program to grow pretty quickly. And I would not be surprised if within a few years we've got 30 and more students in each cohort.
And so you said the people want to start applying in the spring is what you're hoping for.
By February, we should have our application up and launched.
Yeah. Would that be for the upcoming fall semester to start then? Gotcha.
Yep. That's the idea.
That's exciting. Well, I think that's all my questions. Was there anything else that you kind of want to add about it that I didn't think to ask you?
Yeah, there are, a few things. So we focused on how this is beneficial to students on the IUB campus. It's also true. One of the things that I have found really interesting and exciting is that when I've announced this program to internally, I have a staff meeting with all of our staff each semester. And when I announced this program to our staff, there was a lot of interest from staff inside the building, not our faculty, our staff, for example, who work in the HR or the employer relations side of the operation, or in compliance or finance, who thought that this credential would be really beneficial to them. And so it might be that we've got audiences that we're not even fully anticipating. I presented this idea to this degree program to our board of visitors, and there was wild enthusiasm about particular sectors that they thought would be very interested in this master's degree. And so I think in terms of the interest and need for this program, I think we will be learning quickly once we open our doors. It is possible that the enthusiasm for this program will be even greater and in more sectors than we're anticipating. So that's one piece that I think is really exciting. The other part that I think is just very, very important is I know the IBJ has covered the pressing need for solving the legal deserts problem in Indiana. And obviously, this program is not creating more lawyers. It's not creating more people who are going to be licensed to practice law. But a lot of the work that is focused on solving the legal desert problem in Indiana, or at least addressing it, right, mitigating it, doing what we can. The Maurer School of Law has been engaged in that conversation all along the way with the Chief Justice and with the entire group that's working on this issue. This is one contribution to addressing that issue. So, as we talked about earlier, folks will not be licensed to practice law, but what they will be trained to do is know when they actually need to pick up the phone to call a lawyer and when they can actually work themselves through the questions that they otherwise would not have been able to solve themselves. And that we're very excited about. So this will provide legal expertise to a new group of people who will be out in varieties across Indiana that will be trained in some abilities with respect to law analysis and some of the legal skills that we attribute to lawyers typically. And so it's not going to solve the problem, but we hope it will help to mitigate the problem at least somewhat. The communities that we've talked with when we've been out, for example, through our Rural Justice Initiative that both we run and the McKinney School of Law run, we have, and then a couple of other programs that we run here that really are focused on rural communities. We have definitely had a welcoming. This program has been welcomed and enthusiastically welcomed by some of the communities that we work with when we're out in rural communities. So we're excited about that as well. We hope that we can, with this program and others that we've got lined up coming down the road, we hope we can really make significant contributions that start to move the needle on that really pressing, important problem. So that's one. And then the other is that we're very happy that the law school can contribute to the IU Bloomington strategic plan, the 2030 strategic plan, and the university's 2030 strategic plan. Those plans include, for example, ensuring that we are really training our students to be highly skilled and to have flexible and adaptable degrees. And by creating this degree, we really believe that we'll be able to ensure that we're enhancing the opportunities for graduate students and also for professional student success. And through the AMP programs, we're really trying to make that cost effective and time efficient for students. And we're delighted to be able to contribute to the greater effort that the IU Bloomington and IU 2030 strategic plans have in place, because those plans are really in so many ways designed to map on to the state's vital needs, both of the kinds that I was just talking about with respect to legal deserts, whether those are in rural places or in marginalized urban locations, but also just its basic employment needs and the needs to ensure that the Indiana workforce is a constantly evolving, highly skilled workforce. So, we're not just mapping onto the IU strategic plans, but also the Indiana Commission for Higher Education in its most recent strategic plan articulated that workers have to continually be reskilling. And so this master's degree is really designed to provide one avenue for students and professionals to constantly be reskilling. And so we're excited to be able to do our part to help out.
That sounds really, really exciting. I do have one last question.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that if somebody is interested in a JD, but isn't, 100% sure that that's something that they want to do, they can do this and then, maybe use some of maybe the classes that they're taking in this program. And, if they end up, applying for the JD, would that also work for them?
It's such a great question. It's a fabulous question and a totally reasonable one. And unfortunately, you won't be able to apply the credits. So we would love to be able to do that because we know that the courses that a student takes here will be really valuable credits. Unfortunately, the American Bar Association currently precludes us from being able to do that. So it's not just us, it's any program like this one. You can't double count those credits towards a JD degree or convert them into a JD degree. That said, I remember when I was in law school, my first year of law school, I met a woman who had audited the entire first year of law school before applying and going for real, getting credits and getting grades. So for a student who comes for the master's degree and then realizes that, just a fire is lit and they realize that what they really want to be is a lawyer, the master's degree will still be fantastic preparation for them. They will walk into their first year of law classes extremely well prepared for that first year. They will have already taken a fundamentals class in constitutional law and in contracts. They'll know a good bit about the foundations of the legal system, and they will have taken a number of upper-level law classes with fabulous world-class faculty. And that's a pretty unmatchable preparation for the first year of law school for the student who gets a fire lit during the master's degree. We sort of expect that might happen because, well, I'm obviously a law enthusiast, and I also adore my faculty and I know how talented they are. So sitting in their classes can be pretty contagious. The love for the law can be a real contagious experience.
Well, excellent. I think that's everything then.
Terrific. Excellent. Alexa, I just want to say really thank you for reaching out. I'm a huge fan. I moved it off my desk so that I would have a clear desk here behind me, but I'm a huge fan of the Indiana Business Journal. I read it weekly. Every time that in fact, it's right. I have a few of them around me here. And obviously also the Indiana Lawyer. They're just, they're such important publications. They help to connect the state in incredibly important ways and keep us all informed about what's going on and help us know both how to connect with others that are doing work that is important to us and keep us really, both informed and networked. And so I just really appreciate the IBJ and want to thank you for the work you do there. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the Master's in Legal Studies at the Maurer School of Law.
Okay, that'll do for this week's interview. Dean Ochoa, thank you again for joining me today. Stick around after our sponsor break to hear this week's headlines.
Taft, today's modern law firm. At Taft, we cultivate a highly respectful, transparent workplace that fosters creativity, teamwork, inclusion, and diversity. We couple our culture with a client-first approach, rewarding lawyers who understand their clients' goals and work to deliver success. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
Welcome back. Managing editor Daniel Carson and reporter Maura Johnson and I are here in our Monument Circle studio to give you the rundown on the latest legal news. So let's get started. Today is Wednesday, November 27th, 2024, and these are your headlines. Maura, you have news about an ongoing legal battle on gender-affirming care for minors. What can you tell us?
Indiana's ban on gender-affirming care for minors will stay in place, the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on November 13th, reversing a district court's order that would have prevented the state's law from going into effect. By a 2-1 vote, the court completely vacated the district court's temporary injunction against the ban and remanded the case for further proceedings. Judge Kenneth Ripple and Judge Michael Brennan voted in favor, with Judge Candace Jackson Akiwomi dissenting. The decision comes after Indiana's Southern District Court issued a preliminary injunction last summer on the newly enacted Senate Enrolled Act 480. The law bans medical practitioners from providing gender transition procedures to minors. When asked if the ACLU would appeal the decision, a spokesperson told the Associated Press the organization was weighing its options. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita, a conservative Republican, said in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, that the ruling, quote, is a huge win for Hoosiers and will help protect our most precious gift from God, our children, end quote. He added, by rejecting the injunction against our common sense state law, dangerous and irreversible gender transition procedures for minors will remain banned in Indiana. A group of transgender children, their parents, and a physician from Mosaic Health and Healing Arts Incorporated sued state officials for enforcing the law shortly after it was enacted in April 2023. They claimed the law violated the Equal Protection Clause, the Free Speech Clause of the First Amendment, and the Affordable Care Act. The U.S. District Court in Indianapolis granted the ACLU of Indiana's request for a preliminary injunction in June 2023 that extended to the law's prohibitions on puberty-blocking drugs and hormone therapy. The injunction did not extend to the third prohibition, gender reassignment surgery, because no provider performs the surgery in Indiana. The Federal Appeals Court ruled the law doesn't violate the Equal Protection Clause because it doesn't classify based on sex. The court stated the medical procedures that the law blocks are not a right that's deeply rooted in the country's history because the procedures do not have a long history. The first report of a minor transgender patient being treated with puberty blockers was in 1998 in the Netherlands, and the first treatment guidelines for minors with gender dysmorphia by the Endocrine Society came out in 2009. The court wrote that since the law doesn't infringe on a fundamental right, it must be reviewed on a rational basis, noting that the law is supported on a rational basis because it protects minors from being subjected to uncertain medical treatment.
Thanks, Maura. This month, several attorneys received disciplinary action from the Indiana Supreme Court. The law license of former Martinsville City Council member James Wisco, 43, was suspended indefinitely for failure to cooperate with the state Supreme Court's disciplinary commission. This followed a 90-day suspension for Wisco, which was issued after he was arrested in April and charged with 22 felonies. Wisco was charged with theft, counterfeiting, and corrupt business practice. The charges alleged that Wisco was stealing money from his clients and forging checks. Wisco worked for the law firm Foley, Pendon, and Wisco, PA. According to online records, a final pretrial hearing is set for January 17th in Wisco's criminal case, and a week-long jury trial is set to start on February 25th. The law license of Gary attorney Alger Boswell III also has been suspended indefinitely for failing to cooperate with the disciplinary commission concerning an undisclosed grievance filed against him. Boswell worked at the Boswell Law Office, LLC. Fisher's attorney, Sherry Ramage, received an interim suspension after the disciplinary commission received notice of a guilty finding against her in a criminal case. Ramage was found guilty of level 6 felony operating a vehicle while intoxicated. She was sentenced by Marion Superior Court Judge Clayton Graham on June 3rd. Her driver's license was suspended for 180 days. She was sentenced to 545 days in jail with 540 days suspended. Florida attorney Michael Maurer received an interim suspension due to being found guilty of federal crimes of conspiracy to defraud the U.S. and tax evasion. Justice Jeffrey Slaughter voted to decline imposing the interim suspension since Maurer has already resigned from the Indiana bar. According to the Indiana Roll of Attorneys, Maurer resigned from the bar in 2021. These attorneys aren't the only ones to see disciplinary action.
Disciplinary charges were filed on November 18th against a Putnam County judge for his alleged bias against a woman involved in a case he presided over. Putnam County Superior Court Judge Charles Bridges is the only Superior Court judge in the county and faces 2 counts of misconduct. The Indiana Commission on Judicial Qualifications wrote that Bridges violated the Code of Judicial Conduct, which requires a judge to act without bias and to refrain from harassment based on gender. The commission also alleged that Bridges violated the Code of Judicial Conduct and rules of trial procedure by ruling on motions before letting the opposing party respond by a given deadline and by failing to rule on other motions. James Voiles, Bridges' attorney, did not immediately respond to the Indiana lawyer's phone and email requests for comment. In December 2021, Bridges was appointed as special judge over a case between a former couple who were at odds over the money made from a sale of the residence they chose together. In the original complaint, the plaintiff said she was entitled to a portion of the sale under a theory of implied contract to cohabitate. She said that while the defendant purchased the home, the plaintiff contributed to the rehabilitation and maintenance of it. Throughout his time on the case, Bridges frequently ruled on motions filed by one party without giving the other the chance to respond, or failed to rule on certain motions, according to court documents. On one occasion, Bridges granted the defendant's motion to dismiss the plaintiff's original complaint without giving the plaintiff adequate time to respond. A week later, he granted the plaintiff's motion to correct error without giving the defendant time to respond, ultimately vacating the original order dismissing the plaintiff's complaint. During an attorneys-only pre-trial conference in March 2022, Bridges reportedly made several remarks expressing his negative opinion of the legal cause of action for implied contract/unjust enrichment between 2 parties who had lived together but weren't married. In summary, Bridges said it's always women who move in with a man, and then when things go south, she wants half of his things. The plaintiff's attorney filed a motion requesting Bridges' recusal, stating he could not be impartial as shown during the pretrial conference. Bridges did not rule on that motion, according to court documents. In May 2022, the plaintiff filed an appeal to the Court of Appeals, which held that the trial court erred in dismissing the plaintiff's complaint for failure to state a claim, reversed the court's order denying the plaintiff's motion to correct error, reversed the trial court's order releasing funds from the sale of the home to the defendant, and remanded the case for further proceedings. The appeals court also ruled the plaintiff was entitled to a new judge because Bridges could not be impartial, according to court documents. In a July 2023 opinion on the case, the appeals court said Bridges' comments during the pretrial conference hearing, quote, clearly expressed disdain not only for the type of relief that Stout, the plaintiff, was seeking, but for the gender he believed most often sought this type of relief, end quote. The Indiana Supreme Court will now decide the next step in Bridges' disciplinary case. The court will choose whether to dismiss the charges against Bridges, accept or reject a disciplinary agreement between the commission and Bridges, appoint a panel of judges to conduct a public hearing, impose a fine, or impose sanctions.
Thanks, Maura. Moving to State House news, I was at the State Budget Committee meeting a few weeks ago where the Indiana Supreme Court requested an additional $12 million over the next 2 years for improved security and technology. Chief Justice Loretta Rush spoke on behalf of the Indiana Supreme Court in requesting an additional $3 million per year to fund the in-jail management system, a new appropriation of $1.5 million per year to fund security measures, and an additional $1.5 million for safe baby problem-solving courts. In-jail is an effort to simplify jail placements and releases that are now run on about 20 different systems and can lead to communication breakdowns. It was developed in response to the 2019 Jail Overcrowding Task Force report and was initially funded by federal grants. But now state funding is needed to further develop and sustain the program, Rush said. An additional $3 million is also needed over the next 2 years for ongoing development of safe baby problem-solving courts. These courts focus on addressing the needs of families who have a child in need of services who is 3 years old or younger, by providing the family with support services. The courts also see a need for increased security as threats against the judiciary continue to escalate. In December 2023, the Court Security Committee polled judges from across the state. There were 214 judges who participated. Of those judges, 159 stated they have been the target of a threat. Now moving to Daniel for news about an investigation out of the Office of the Attorney General.
Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita has opened immigration-related investigations into several nonprofits, government agencies, and businesses, with the office alleging that an influx of migrants has created housing and possible labor trafficking issues in Evansville, Seymour, and Logansport. Entities receiving civil investigative demands from the Attorney General were Evansville-based Berry Global Group Incorporated, which is Indiana's sixth largest public company in terms of revenue, the Cass County Health Department in Logansport, Logansport Community School Corporation, Tent Partnership for Refugees, a New York City-based nonprofit founded by the CBO of Shabani Yogurt that pairs migrants with available jobs, God is Good, a Christian ministry in Evansville that assists immigrants and refugees, and the Jackson County Industrial Development Corporation in Seymour. The Logansport School District, Berry Global, Tent Partnership, God is Good Foundation, and Jackson County Industrial Development Corporation did not immediately respond to requests for comment from Indiana Lawyer. Rokita said in a news release the, quote, rapid growth of alien populations in certain communities has caused overcrowding in housing facilities as multiple families and sometimes dozens of individuals reportedly share space and structures intended to be single-family dwellings. It has also raised concerns about potential labor trafficking, end quote. Rokita's office said it is conducting these investigations pursuant to its authority under Indiana's Deceptive Consumer Sales Act and Indecent Nuisance Statute. Quote, the influx of these illegal aliens, which are coming from over 150 different countries, have strained our schools and the children of taxpayers are suffering as a result. It has caused unneeded stress on law enforcement, local hospitals, and healthcare facilities, and our labor and housing markets, Rokita said in the release. It also raises serious questions about how these individuals' arrival in Indiana are being facilitated, end quote.
Thanks, Daniel. Indiana Senate Democrats retained their leader despite sexual harassment allegations against the senator. The Indiana Senate Democratic Caucus re-elected its leader, Senator Greg Taylor of Indianapolis, just hours after the Indianapolis Star reported 3 women have accused Taylor of sexual harassment. The allegations of unwanted physical contact and romantic pursuit of an intern over 8 years. In the article, Taylor did not deny the harassment. Instead, he apologized for past behavior that, quote, may have blurred the lines. Taylor has led his caucus since 2022 and has represented District 33 since 2008. And back to Maura for news out of Delphi.
On November 11th, a jury found Richard Allen guilty in the murders of 2 teenage girls in Delphi. The verdict came after nearly 19 total hours of deliberations and 18 days of testimony in a Carroll County courthouse trial that garnered international attention and intense media coverage across the state. The jury convicted Allen of the murders of 14-year-old Liberty German and 13-year-old Abigail Williams, who were found dead near the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi the day after they had gone for a hike in February 2017. The case garnered widespread attention ever since the crime occurred, but it took investigators more than 5 years to make an arrest. Allen is a former local pharmacy technician and stood trial just a few miles from where the girls went missing. He was found guilty of 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of felony murder. His sentencing is scheduled for 9 a.m. on December 20th. He faces up to 130 years in prison. A gag order previously imposed by Special Judge Francis Gull prevented prosecutors, defense attorneys, police, and the families from commenting on the case after the verdict was announced.
And finally, to wrap up this week's headlines, Daniel, tell us what you were working on for our next print edition.
For Indiana Lawyer's December 4th issue, I'll take a look at a still vacant Indiana Southern District federal judgeship and whether judiciary observers think that bench seat, as well as other vacant judgeships nationwide, will be filled by the U.S. Senate before January when a new presidential administration and Congress come into office. You can read all about it in our next print edition.
Okay, that'll do for this week's headlines. As always, if you want more legal news, check us out at theindianalawyer.com.